We will hear the public hearing tonight, no matter how late it will be, till tomorrow morning, okay?
Okay, so now we are on consent calendar. This is items number 4 through 15 on the agenda. Are there any requests from the public or members of the council to pull any of the consent items, Madam City Clerk?
I have no speaker cards.
No speaker cards for any of the items. Okay, that being the case, is there a motion with regard to the consent calendar?
I can make a motion. I just need clarification for number 15, whether Councilmember Singh should be recuse himself.
Yeah, maybe I could make the motion that we 4 through 15, and I will.
Not 15.
14 through 14.
14.
I'm sorry that I will recuse 4 through 15, but I'm recusing on number 15. Is that okay?
We should probably
I
have two
just want
separate
clarification
motions.
that you can be seated.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we do 4 through 14, and then you can excuse yourself from the chambers, and then we'll.
Well, if nobody's to pull it, I'm okay doing this.
So if I may, on 15, Councilmember Singh can just not vote, but there's no discussion on that, so he can remain seated.
Okay, and so should we just have one motion in which?
I suggest that you move the consent items up to 14, and then as to 15, you take a separate vote, so it's clear that he is recusing himself.
Okay, so.
I move consent calendar 4 through 14.
Second?
Okay, I'll just say before we vote with our lights, I'm really glad that we are declaring a climate emergency under resolution under number 14. This is extremely critically important for not just our community, but for the planet. And it is something that I'm very glad to be able to bring forward to the community, and hopefully we can get some real measures taken nationally as well.
Wait 1 second.
Councilmember Scharf?
Is this including item 15 here?
No, it does not include 15.
Oh, okay. All right,
Okay.
that's fine. Thank you.
All right, please vote with your lights.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right, we are now on item number 15. Is there, again, any request to pull that item for discussion? Yes. There is not.
Yeah, I would request it.
Okay, so there is a member of the public, as well as a council member, who has requested to pull that item. The agenda item is subjected Apple Incorporated donation to augment public safety service levels in the city of Cupertino. And that having been pulled, we'll wait until Vice Mayor Sinks is outside of the chambers. Okay, we have our Deputy City Manager, Jackie Guzman here. Would you care to give a brief word of introduction on this item?
Mayor, members of the council, the Sheriff's Office has reported that we've seen an increase in activity, calls for service in the C5 beat area that includes Apple Park, Main Street, and Valco. In 2017, we experienced a 6% increase in calls for service, and year to date, we're experiencing a 12% increase. So they have recommended the addition of police services in that area specifically, and Apple has committed to donating additional hours, the equivalent of 2 deputies, which would begin October 1st through the end of the fiscal year if it were approved by council today. They are making that commitment ongoing, so what you are approving tonight is just additional hours to the end of the year, including an equivalent increase in our budget to make that adjustment to our contract with the Sheriff's Office. Next fiscal year, they are committed to continuing that donation, but that decision would be made during the budget process. So council would have an opportunity to weigh in whether or not they want to increase that service. And then, of course, Apple would need to firmly let the city know that they were still committed to that.
Okay, very good.
And I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council? Councilmember Scharf.
It seems really odd to be funding police services for a specific company with a donation. Has this been done in any other cities with the county sheriff?
So to clarify, these additional deputies would not be for a specific company. It would be for a specific beat area that includes the area surrounding Apple Park. It includes Main Street and it includes Valco. It's the whole area that would have some increased service. However, if there was a need, the sheriff's office would and the city would retain full discretion over where those resources are most needed in the city. But for now, that concentration seems to be in that C5 beat area, and the sheriff's office concurs with that that's where the need is in the city.
So this is including like their new product release like last week.
If it's a private event, then Apple may hire the sheriff's office for pay jobs. It's not something that would be included in this.
So
service.
that's not.
That's a private event, and
Okay.
if there are police services for a private event, then there is an arrangement that's made between the city, the sheriff's office, and the specific company.
So
that's separate.
This is part of the development agreement we had before. During the.
No.
This is just coming up.
Right.
Are we going to get it every year?
Their intent is to make it ongoing, but again, that will be evaluated on an annual basis during the budget process.
Right. I'm not questioning about any income, any revenue coming from Apple. Okay. The more, the better. Okay. But what I'm asking is this a constant, is fixed revenue coming from them?
It's not revenue, it's a donation. So Apple will need to notify the city every year whether they intend to make that donation. And
Right.
at that time, council, during the budget process, can accept that donation and put additional resources
So then my next
in the
question,
budget.
if that's a donation, if they stop the donation a couple of years down the road, then that means we stop providing the service?
It will be up to the council during the budget process to make that determination.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from council? I'll open up the public communications portion of this item. We have one speaker card from Kitty Moore. Welcome, Kitty, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, I don't have a whole lot to say. I'm just a little confused. I'm glancing at the EIR for Apple, and they would have had in that the public services portion, and I have to admit I haven't had a chance to read this working on the Valco things, but my concern is that we are looking at what looks like an oversight in the previous EIR. From Apple about what could happen down the road from their project. So I think we need to be alert to that, especially with the essentially the quick getaway that we have with the I-280 exit that is used. And I use the Bay Club, and we do regularly see break-ins in the parking lot there. So every time I'm there, I'm concerned about it. So I certainly agree with adding the extra sheriffs, but my concern is that the EIR in itself was missing some information. Thank you.
Thank you, Kitty. Question from
So
Councilmember
would this
Sharp.
cover that side of Wolf Road where the Bay Club is?
Yes, I
How
believe
far,
so.
how far?
I believe it
west does it
covers
go?
all of, and I probably can project a map of that area if.
That's all right. I don't need the map. I just wondered how far
Yes,
west it
I
went.
believe so. I believe it covers all of the Valco area, all of Main Street, and that area all the way through the borders.
Okay, and it
Cupertino.
stops at Stevens Creek, or?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, thank
Stops
you.
at Stevens Creek. So certainly there's been an uptick in activity in Main Street and in Valco since it is, there's been a lot of car break-ins, there's been a lot of calls for service in those areas as well.
But are developments like Main Street and Valco, don't they provide their own security guards for parking lots?
They do, but when there are calls for service in terms of break-ins, then the security guards don't deal with that issue. They're there for preventative measures, but the sheriff's office is called.
Okay. Well, it's very odd to be funding police services with donations that may or may not continue. Is there any other way we could collect money from the people that will benefit? I mean, not just Apple. If Apple shouldn't have to pay the whole thing, actually, it should be shared by the other entities in that area.
There are always different ways that council can increase revenues for additional services. This is certainly a way that you don't have to tax your taxpayers, residents of Cupertino, or a general business tax. But council could decide to move in that way to fund these services.
I mean, I'm okay with this temporarily for the end of the fiscal year, but I think we really should look to fund essential services with something other than voluntary donations from companies. I mean, even if it is Apple with a lot of money, it doesn't seem right that they foot the whole bill when many other areas are benefiting from it.
So how about the speaker's question with regard to the EIRs anticipating of the public service need for this level of security? Can you speak to that, or perhaps someone from?
I'm not sure if if crime is included, potential crime is included in an EIR. I do know that generally in the region we are experiencing an uptick in certain types of crimes, property crimes, especially car break-ins, and that is not unique to Cupertino. It's not unique to developments. It's happening region-wide that we're seeing this uptick.
All right. Okay,
I
are
have
there
a
any other
comment.
questions?
Just a
Councilmember Vaidyanathan?
Excuse me. When it comes to the budget processing next year, I would like to see a report from the Sheriff's Office on what they've done in the last 6 months, because I'm assuming it will come to us sometime between March and June.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that being discussed, is there any motion that we care to bring with regard to item number 15 on consent?
I moved to accept the Apple donation, item number 15.
Is there a second?
Portions to the motion.
Two portions to the motion. What do you mean?
If you look under the action, there are
Oh, okay. Accept the donation from Apple Inc. in the amount of $558,000 and $979 for increased police service in Cupertino for fiscal year 2018 through 2019. And number 2, approve an expenditure increase of $558,979 in the Law Enforcement Division budget for 2725 hours, 2,725 hours of additional police service from the Santa Clara County Sheriff Office for a total fiscal year 2018-2019 contract amount of $12,175,154 to $12,734,133.
Is there a second?
second.
All right, please vote with your lights.
Motion carries with Sinks recusing.
Okay,